Started off, what I found with Stellar Fusion was not the hours. What I found with Stellar Fusion is it's all consuming. It doesn't stop. It's always there, right? It's even before I would go to bed, I would sort of tell myself, I need to just switch off, but I wouldn't. It would still be there. I would still be thinking about it. Call this investor. What if we built this into the product? What if this person's out there doing this and we're not thinking about that? And so it was all consuming. And it was mentally exhausting.
So, Aneek, thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, you've built Stellar Fusion from just an idea into now a fast-growing company. What tips, what recommendations would you give to other aspiring founders? They might have an idea, they want to build something, they're not sure how to get started. What insights could you share with them?
Yeah, I think, I guess it might be worth sort of me sharing just a little bit of background before then. So I'm a founder very much based around something that I understood quite well. So I was an equities analyst for a long time, for more than 20 years. I worked in the investment banking industry in equity research. And I guess I always had a slightly entrepreneurial viewpoint, but the problem that I wanted to solve was very specific to something I'd seen in the industry. And so I felt I had a very good knowledge of it, felt very strongly about the idea of making models available to the wider sort of investing ecosystem. And so it was very much about taking that as a concept and then actually getting started with it. And what I guess I sort of learned was, particularly in our industry, there's plenty of people that have very strong ideas, but investment banking as an industry, people struggle to break away from the industry to go set something up themselves. Basically because it's very hard to give up a very well-paid job and take a huge risk when you've got family and you've got school fees and all these things to think about. And so I was lucky to some extent that our family setup meant that I could take that risk. But what I've sort of found since then is that the career that I had shaped me very well to actually find the right type of people that I wanted to work with. So, what I've sort of discovered very quickly is that having the right characters, the right skill sets, character more than skill set, is absolutely critical. And so I've been lucky I was able to get those people in place, but I think that education through investment banking was critical to avoiding those early mistakes. And then at the same time, what I've sort of discovered over time is that the product flow and how you build product is very much centered on going deep with the customer experience. And so that's something, again, which I think you can leverage from the career that I had. But I would say that's another area where, I've learned a lot in that time and we've got better over time, but something I probably missed early on when we started.
So you would say having that deep industry and domain expertise allowed you to quickly move ahead, whereas others that didn't have that background, they wouldn't have known the mistakes to avoid, but basically. And I understand that firsthand, right? I spent 5 years working for a big global recruiting company. So when I set up my own agency, I wasn't starting from day one. I was starting from, day 5 years and 1 day, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, exactly. And our product is very technical. And it's being built for a pretty sophisticated audience, but at the same time, we're trying to simplify it. And having a deep understanding of the nuances of that product is critical, I think. I think people have tried to build in this space without having that deep understanding, and they've struggled. And so that benefits us. There's also the business element of it as well, where I think I've benefited from having that experience, more than 20 odd years now, which you sort of learn over time, and a certain level of maybe of maturity, a certain level of, the standard that I expect of the kind of product we'll produce and things like that, which you learn through that training. I think that's been hugely beneficial.
Cool. So to help build your company, you've raised, I want to say more than $2 million, but correct me if that's not up to date. Yeah. So a lot of founders that we speak to on this podcast, maybe they've got an idea, but they're struggling with the pitch, or they can't quite find the investors to begin with. Obviously, your background in IB probably helped you significantly with this, but what advice would you give to people that are looking to raise capital and secure funds for growth?
Yeah, so I think the first advice I would give is try to stay as lean as you can for as long as you can. I think we probably, so I was lucky in that we had a couple of investors that wanted to back us early. And they understood the problem, they wanted to be involved early. We had a few other investors as well that were super keen at the time. And as you say, they were from IB investing backgrounds. So generally people who were quite well off, and if they understood it, they wanted to be a part of it. So that worked in our favor. The challenge we had with other investors is that, again, our product is quite nuanced. And so trying to convince these people of the size of the market, and I probably developed a bit of a chip on my shoulder having these conversations with them where it was like, oh, the TAM's not big enough. I'm like, guys, come on, are you serious? Like, I've worked in this space for 20 years. I know exactly how big the TAM is. Yes. And so I probably focused more and more conversations on less the simplicity of the message and instead on speaking to investors that got it. I would say that actually since then, we've spent more time on the simplicity of the message and then it resonates. And I think, I do wish actually earlier on we'd done more of that TAM work. We'd done more of explaining in a simpler way how our solution would work, why it's so big, why it's so critical. And recently, for the round that we're now sort of kicking off, is I've written an investment memo that's actually really helped. Again, getting that clarity of message, trying to correct some of the mistakes we made sort of last year and the year before, where the community that we were reaching out to was very much people that understood the problem. And so I think investment memos, clarity of thought, clarity of TAM, your problem, your solution, who your day one customers are as well. I think that's very important. We probably made the mistake of thinking too broadly. Yeah. And there's an element of, we sort of built a product, and the first thing I sort of thought was there's so many different use cases. Yeah, right, well, let's build everything.
A red flag, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's build everything.
You're building it for everybody. You're building it for nobody.
Yeah, exactly. And that's always the issue. And so look, in the last sort of few months, we've started to go very, very deep with certain customers, and that's really started to get results. And so, again, I wish I'd thought about that first up. So I guess to answer your question, I think the key thing is in terms of getting that clarity of message. So one, we've raised well, but I think in terms of getting money from a broader capital base, broader group of people, I wish we'd actually had a simpler message starting off. And I wish we'd actually been much, much clearer on who our day one customer was, how we were going to grow it, how we were going to scale it, how we were eventually then going to grow into the bigger TAM. Yeah. And that's all work that we've spent a lot more time on now recently.
Cool. You mentioned something a moment ago, which I really liked. You said, when you're hiring, character is more important than skills. And I completely agree. Like, you can train somebody to do a job. It's really hard to train somebody to be a good person. Like, I've found that firsthand from running a recruiting company, right? Yeah. What's important to you when hiring? Like, what are you looking for? What type of person? What type of culture are you trying to build?
Yeah, so I think, look, there's part of it is I have a slight bias myself in that I came from a background which wasn't particularly well off. I was brought up by a single mother. I was largely brought up by my grandparents, immigrant families, where I was basically pushed to be a hustler, right? Work hard, work incredibly hard, keep pushing, be resilient, be strong. Those are characteristics that I look for in the people that I want to work with. And that's not just a recent thing. That's something that I think ever since I began running teams, investment banking, I would look for as well. I would kind of push towards those characters, and I'd want those kind of people on my team. But you can't just have those people, right? So there's a great quote, which I forget who it's from, but you need visionaries, you need hustlers, and you need hackers. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I would think about it, increasingly where, okay, I've got, myself and one of my co-founders, we're quite similar in terms of how we operate, we'll work incredibly hard, and often our day one sort of solution is, right, okay, just work harder, and that's very much an investment banking mindset. And what I've got with our other co-founder is actually she'll sort of step back and just say, guys, are we actually doing this the right way? Let's think bigger in terms of problems. So having that vision, broader thought process, I think is important as well. But look, you can have both, right? You can have the DNA of working incredibly hard and at the same time being thoughtful, vision. We're not just going to go and work incredibly, blindly over something. So I think that's kind of what you look for. You want people that bring elements of all three, right? Visionaries, they're visionary, they hustle, they're hackers in a startup culture, but they've got an area where you can just trust them, you can just back them to do it.
Hey, this podcast is brought to you by WeLoveAlpha.com. If you're looking to grow and hire and scale your software engineering team in the UK, then go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software developers on the market. Everything across Java to C# to PHP to Python to React and Angular and mobile and more. Go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software engineers in the UK now. Yeah, no, absolutely. You're using, if you need more water, by the way, just let me know.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You're using AI within your business with Nebula. So what are your thoughts on the future of artificial intelligence? Some people think it's going to change the world for the better and we'll all be living in utopia. Some people believe it's going to lead to the end of the world. Obviously, Nebula is a small piece in that equation, but what are your thoughts on the future of AI?
Yeah, so I think, look, I'm not the right person to speak about it, I guess, more broadly from a world context. I know there's some amazing things that people are doing in terms of, DNA testing and in terms of health and all that kind of stuff where it can be completely game-changing. I can talk to what I think it can do to our industry, and actually I think our industry is a very good example of an industry which is heavily focused on human capital, has been very, very slow to adopt technology. The reason for that is that actually it's not needed to because it's been very profitable, right? And at the same time, it's been slow to adopt technology partly because of compliance and security and things like that. But if you look at it, today, it can cost a business anywhere between $50,000 to $200,000 to produce an equity research report.
Blimey.
Which means that today we're in a world where you'll see things like the LSE increasingly seeing businesses go private again, having listed. Right? And there's a huge debate around why that's happening, but one of the biggest reasons is that actually you don't have enough equity research coverage of businesses. And if a business doesn't get equity research coverage, it doesn't get liquidity, right, in terms of the stock. And so essentially they end up going private again. And so debottlenecking that is incredibly critical, but the way to debottleneck that is to drive more equity research coverage. So you need to change the mindset of investment banks, equity research firms to cover more stocks, take on more technology to increase productivity. So today, analysts on average cover about 10 stocks each. There's no reason why that number can't be 20 or 30, but they need more technology. They need tools that can make them far more productive. And you need early adopters, right, who don't think this is just taking away my role, but actually understand that this is actually making me a far better analyst. This is allowing me the opportunity to spend time on the things that I really can add value to. And so I think it's a very good test case, right, because this industry for years has been very fixated on, relationships and sitting in my model and writing my own reports, and that will change. That will change significantly over the next 5 years. And, we're already seeing across the analysts that we speak to, the early adopters just say, I want to be all in on this. And the others who will still just sort of say, no, my process has been my process and you can't disrupt that. And so, look, I think that the key in our area will be AI supplementing human thought process and basically elevating human thought process, right? That's the goal. I don't necessarily believe in a world where AI will start giving you all investing information and all investing ideas, because that's perfect markets, right, effectively. Sure. And I don't think that's necessarily what we want.
So you believe it will be a co-pilot, a tool to assist, to advise, to help, but you don't think it will replace?
Yeah.
What about on the more, trading side? I appreciate it's slightly different, but a lot of more like day traders. I do more angel investing. I own some Vanguard index funds, but the people that kind of buy and sell very, very quickly, obviously they have AI type technology which does that, and it's not perfect. But do you see, I appreciate it's slightly different to your wheelhouse, but do you see that AI for that purpose replacing the human side of kind of buying and selling very quickly and day trading?
Yeah, I think a lot of that's already been happening, right? So the execution of trading has been moving electronic for years now. So I think that's just a trend that will continue, and that becomes more and more available to consumers. But today, so if I was to say to you, you're investing in a Vanguard ETF, but like you said to me earlier, you enjoy the idea of investing in startup businesses as well. Yeah. There's plenty of public companies that people never even heard of that you could actually invest in that have significant value and opportunity, but you wouldn't have heard of them. You don't have the bandwidth and time to hear of them. Yeah. But if we could actually bring some of those insights to you and help you find them and discover them faster, then you're more likely to actually even look at those, right? Because today, I think the mindset's become, over the last sort of 10 years with retail investors at least, is that I view the stock market as an opportunity for wealth creation, but not necessarily something around financial education and digging into stocks. Yeah. And so you've had ETFs, you've had robo-advising, and we'll do the investing for you. You don't need to worry about anything. But the actual enjoyment of digging into a company, actually understanding it, taking a view, this could be huge, in a GameStop type, Twitter universe, people love doing that. Yeah. So if you can open up more of that, you can make that information more accessible to them, allow them to understand companies better, value companies, forecast companies. We're creating a smarter, financially literate society, right?
Yeah. What did you think of the whole game, meme stock venture recently? Some people, like Roaring Kitty, the guy who spearheaded it, he made, I think he was almost a billionaire at one point, and then he lost half of his portfolio in a day. Yeah. Some people think it's great, it's amazing. Some people think this is not exactly what the stock market is meant to be doing. Yeah. Do you have an opinion on all of that?
So I think it's, look, I spent quite a bit of time, probably sort of around the pandemic, digging into what some of these retail investors were doing. Yeah. And what you sort of find is, you find people that are very much just traders that are looking for, they're just looking to make a quick buck. Sure. Right? Yeah. And there'll always be that kind of gambler element, risk-taking element in all of us. Yeah. I'm not interested in, I don't need to dig into this. If I can make a couple of $100,000 quickly, I'm all in. I'm just going to give it a go. Yeah. So that becomes your Dogecoin, that becomes your GameStop, your AMC, right? Yeah. And that was very much that investor, that kind of mindset. But then what you also saw was that on FinTwit, there were thousands, hundreds of thousands of people following Twitter people that actually were trying to educate you, right, on how to think about forecasts. Why could Tesla actually be worth $2,000 if their average selling price goes up? If the overall market for cars every year is something like, it's 100 million, but actually Tesla could maybe get 30 million cars out of that. In which case, what could the value be of the cash flow? What could the margin be of Tesla if it's based on batteries, and actually traditionally the EBIT margin for cars has been incredibly low, but now it could be significantly higher. Mm. And you had these people that were really enjoying that learning experience, right? And so I think we basically what we were discovering during that time is that we had, a large portion of the younger society that didn't just want to create wealth, they actually wanted to become more financially literate. Mm. And I think that's happened. We then had sort of 2020, 21, 22, you had a lot of small startups that sort of started actually spending a lot more time with retail investors. We originally had the view as well that we could make our product available to retail investors. At some point we will do, but actually partnering with the eToros and the Robinhoods is kind of how we would like to do it. But that world exists, right? Where the demographics mean that we need to become more and more financially literate. Yeah. So I don't think the meme world is actually a fair reflection of what's going on. I think what's going on is actually below that meme world, people trying to become more financially literate, wanting to educate themselves, wanting to become good investors. Yeah,
I think you're probably right, to be honest, yeah. You posted on LinkedIn a few months ago some advice that a fitness coach gave you, which was, Aniek, stop overthinking, just keep stepping forward. Yeah. If it gets tough, send it. Let me read one more time just for the listeners. Aniek, stop overthinking, just keep stepping forward. If it gets tough, send it. Now, I appreciate that was largely around fitness,
Yeah.
but there's probably parallels there to startup world, to business, just to life itself.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about, I guess, that advice. Like, why did you share that? Why did that stand out to you? How can people apply that?
Yeah. So let me step back a second. So one of the things I guess I found when I started Stellar Fusion relative to actually working in investment banking, my hours were incredibly long, as you can imagine, right? But I felt I could switch off.
How many hours in like traditional IB environment?
Anywhere between 12 to 14, 15 hours maybe, but I would say that I probably started my career willing to put in 14, gradually got to somewhere around 11 because you just become a bit more disgruntled and, things like that sort of come about. But I think I started off, what I found with Stellar Fusion was not the hours. What I found with Stellar Fusion is it's all consuming. It doesn't stop. It's always there, right? It's even before I would go to bed, I would sort of tell myself, I need to just switch off, but I wouldn't. It would still be there. I would still be thinking about it. Call this investor. What if we built this into the product? What if this person's out there doing this and we're not thinking about that? And so it was all consuming. And it was mentally exhausting. And I remember speaking to a few founders, and then I listened to this thing actually that Mark Zuckerberg put out saying, speaking to young founders, and he actually said, not that I'm a young founder, I'm 44 years old, but he basically said, like, for founders, one of the key things that I discovered early on was that you need things that require so much of your energy that they make you forget what's going on with the company. And so one of those things was, for him, was, I think he said languages. Yes. And so I was learning Portuguese, and I can speak Portuguese pretty fluently now, so it stopped becoming something that could take me away from Stellar Fusion. Actually, I needed a different language to do that. He then did surfing, because he was like, it's pretty hard when you're surfing to think about anything else other than trying to stay alive. And then he did jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, you can't think about EBITDA when you're doing...
No, exactly. And jiu-jitsu was exactly the same. It was like when someone's trying to beat the hell out of you, it's very hard to sort of, focus on anything other than the jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And so I then kind of took that and I thought, look, I need things. And so I got myself into CrossFit. Threw myself into CrossFit, signed up to a gym quite local to me in Battersea. Great bunch of guys. And I started doing that very much at my own pace. I actually also tried Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I tried go-karting as another one as well. They require a bit more time. CrossFit kind of went in very comfortably into my routine. Actually, the Jiu-Jitsu experience left me quite battered and bruised, so I thought this might, I'll revisit this at some point in the future. Yeah. But the CrossFit worked really well. There was then the CrossFit Games this year, and I didn't want to do it. And but the instructors were pushing to try and get this number. We needed 100 from our gym, and I became a bit obsessed with it. And I basically thought, right, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it well, and I'm going to give it everything I've got, which isn't a lot, but I'm going to give it everything I've got. Sure. So I basically went to the first one, which was I can't remember what it was. So you basically had to. You would get every week, every Friday, I don't know if you know anything about it, but every week, every Friday, you'd get this is the WOD that you have to do, this is the workout that you're going to have to do. Everyone then submits their results. You have to have someone that's actually going to test you and make sure you're doing it right.
This is a quick message to tell you about Alpha University. Alpha University is an advanced training program to help you reach success in 7 simple steps. I am going to personally coach you so that you can achieve your goals, make more money, and transform your life. Just go to joinalphauniversity.com now or click the link in the description. And it's put on a big whiteboard, right?
Yeah.
So I haven't done CrossFit myself, but I've seen the Netflix documentaries, which sounds like a really unhealthy thing to say, but yeah. I do work out every single morning, just not CrossFit.
Yeah, no, but exactly. But so it's exactly that. Yeah. And I basically so the first one that I did, I basically brought my son with me to the gym because he wanted to watch me do it. Okay. And they basically said, look, he can make sure you're not fouling and faulting. It's fine. It's no big deal. We'll just make sure he's doing that and we'll sign it. So you have to sign what your result was and then submit it. And this was a dumbbell workout. So you had to do a dumbbell clean. You then had to do, I can't remember what it was, like 20 burpees over the bar or over the dumbbell. And my son he fouled me a couple of times. So he basically said, he was like, oh no, you didn't jump fully over the dumbbell. Yeah. And I was looking at him, and in this moment where I'm in extreme pain, just trying to push through, I was like, I can't believe it. What have I done to him? Like, I can't believe he's actually fouling me. Yeah. And why on earth would he put me through this? And then actually, it was funny. One of the instructors then came over, and I was like, God, I'm struggling. And she just said to me, just keep stepping over the bar, over the dumbbell, and when it gets hard, just send it. Yeah. And that actually got me through. And as I was doing it, I was trying to push through, and I was like, God, I'm not going to be able to do this. I will never be able to do this. There's another sort of 10, 12 minutes of this. Yeah. And he's clearly got it in for me as well at the same time. And she sort of said, I don't actually know her that well, but she's one of the instructors there. And she said this, she was like, just keep stepping over. And I was like, good, I've done that all my life. Like, that's what I've done. Yeah. Just keep going forward, keep going, be resilient. And then the result will come. And it does apply to startups, you're completely right. And it does apply to startups. That's exactly what we've done, right? And it's, there's days when it's incredibly hard, it's incredibly dark, but it's not just startups, it's life in general. You just keep pushing forward.
And that's it, you got two choices. Do you keep stepping forward, or do you give up? Do you quit? Yeah. And 99% of people at some point in their life, they do quit, they do give up. But the 1% of people that just have that persistence, they just keep stepping forward, they just keep sending it. Yeah. They're the ones that go on to do amazing things and change the world. Yeah. So, okay. Something else you posted on LinkedIn, if everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. So if everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. I think that's a quote from some historic famous person. I can't remember who. Yeah. But why did you share that? What's important to you about, I guess, people doing it together, and then the success then being a byproduct of that rather than the target which they're aiming for, if that makes sense.
So I think, I don't remember that specific post actually, but I think if I sort of think about it from a company perspective, and it's not just that, it's company, it's a team perspective. I think what's important is that when you're thinking about the culture of the people around you and what you're trying to create, you want people to disagree with you, right? You want disagreements around you, not necessarily disagreements, but you want people that bring opinions, right?
You don't want a bunch of yes men.
No, exactly. You want people that bring opinions. You want people, and you must have the humility to take those views on board as well. But in the end, when we decide we're doing something, you need those people to also turn around and say, I gave my view, that wasn't taken on board fully, but now let's get with the program and now let's push forward, right? And that's important. And so what you can't have is, I gave my view, you didn't go with it, and now I'm, I don't want to be part of this. I'm disgruntled. I'm not happy. I'm, operating at 50% of the level that I can. So one, as a manager, you have to try and solve that. Yeah. But you as a character, or the kind of people you're going to get, must also be people that are, I guess, humble. They are open, but also they understand the bigger goal, the bigger vision, is to make sure that we build something big, right? And so they will put aside, disagreements or whatever it might be, and say, do you know what, let's keep going, let's push forward. So I guess that's probably what I was leaning towards with that. But yeah, I think that's 100% the case. Like, you need people that will just go, I'll give you a view, and if you decide not to take it, I'll fall in line and we're still going in the direction that you say we need to go to.
Yes, because so many people, they won't give the view to begin with, so you don't really know if they're on the bus or not. And then when it comes to the finish line and it's almost like invisible resentment. They haven't told you that they disagree, and it builds up and it builds up, it builds up. Transparency and the willingness to be an adult and just get on board and work ahead with the plan. Because ultimately, everybody has their opinion about how to do something, and you might be convinced in that opinion, but it might not be right. Like the best people that I know, they've got strong opinions, but very loosely held. They're willing to change and to be adaptable if needed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Final quote, not from your LinkedIn, but from your Instagram bio. It reads, "Work hard, be kind, dream big," which I love it. Like if I was to get a tattoo, that might be something along those lines. So work hard, be kind, dream big, especially the be kind that's missing in a lot of people today. But why did you write that in your...
So on my kids is, that quote is what I tell my kids. I would always sort of say to them, look, in the end, I don't care what you do, what you become, but those are 3 things that I want to see from you. And my wife always talk about the fact that we try and instill that. Like, you know, we try to instill that in them, that we want them to have the work ethic that, you know, I'm going to give whatever I do, I'm going to give it everything. But also that I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be kind to my brother. I'm going to be kind to my sister, kind to my parents. I'm going to think about other people. And actually, I've put the be kind quotes on their bunk beds because that was during, you know, when I think it was Caroline Flack when she died, and there was a lot of sort of, you know, be kind sort of quotes that came out, and particularly in the social media age, there's so often what you see is not what's actually happening to the person, right? And there's loads of examples about that.
She's the example, right?
Yeah, she's the example of that, exactly. There's loads of examples about that. And so, look, it was something that to me was super important. Like my wife and I, quite similar in that we view our kids a little bit as projects, you know, and there are characteristics we want them to have. And as long as you have those characteristics, you'll be successful in whatever you do. And we've done our job, right? And at that point, you know, we've taught you to sort of, you know, be that type of human being, and whatever path you take, but we would have done our job. And so, that's kind of where it comes from. Very much sort of my, a message to my kids. If I could sort of say one thing to them, it's that, basically. Yeah.
I'm actually building out my kids' first bedroom at the moment, so if you don't mind, I'm going to steal the be kind thing.
Yeah, no, of course, We did, I used to love this. So I would spend so much time thinking about this human, I have to be careful not to get emotional, but this human, this character, what are the things that I want them to take? And so I would actually find quotes from Disney, quotes from Winnie the Pooh, and then I would put them in their room, and I wanted them to kind of like take them in. And I would tell them what it is. And so we do this thing where we actually, my wife and I will sit down with them at night. We do it pretty much every single night. Even if one of us is traveling, we try and do it via FaceTime, and we'll sit down at night and ask them how their day went. What did they do to be kind today? What did they do, you know, and we'll share ours as well. If we're having a shit time, we'll say to them, like, you know, I'm not having the best time right now, I'm not feeling great. It's just, you know, nurturing them in the right kind of way and making sure they have those values always. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Mate, it's been great to speak to you about advice on life, on AI, the future of technology, and advice on building and investing in companies and everything in between, really. If people have resonated with this and they want to learn more about Stellar Fusion, what's the best place? What's the website?
So the website is stellarfusion.io. So as you may have gathered, we're not a space company. I still get people sort of asking, are you doing stuff in space? Yes. It's stellarfusion.io. You can find out a little bit more about what we're doing. You know, feel free to sort of drop me a message on LinkedIn or anything like that. You know, to the extent that I can, we'll always make time to answer questions and help people how we can.
Cool. Aneek, thank you very much.
No, pleasure. Thank you very much, Alfie.
Hey, thanks for watching this podcast. Make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, comment, etc., and I'll see you in the next episode.